to assume that the greatest of love stories have only to do with the notion of romanticism. You know the story. We know the story. Boy meets girl, right? Girl meets boy. They fall in love with their own special story. They get over what is in front of them, and then they get married, and then they live happily ever after. The love story. Well, in this place, though, at church, in worship, we remember that so many love stories have nothing to do with courtship and love and marriage. A great love story, the greatest of love stories, it needs to be bigger than that. Bigger than finding one true love and focusing your whole world in on that one true love forever and ever. Amen. Today presented before us are two of the Bible's great love stories of a different kind, right? Each of these love stories presents its own cast of characters. There are people involved in these love stories, their own circumstances, their own issues, and most importantly, their own truths and their own morals of the stories. The love story that is told in this book of Ruth indeed has girls meet boys in it. But in this initial part, chapter 1, it is part of the romantic tragedy. Not the happily ever after, and so they lived. Not yet, anyway. Mark's Gospel's love story comes in a dialogue of Jesus. Asks a question not about love. Love was not framed in the question, asked Jesus, but of commandment, of rule following. Which one is the greatest commandment? Jesus was asked. Both answers Jesus gave, both morals, have for you and me examples of the truest kind of love. So listen here. Once upon a time, it begins. Once upon a time, a woman named Naomi left the town of Bethlehem in the kingdom of Judah in the midst of a severe famine, which is terribly ironic because Bethlehem essentially means basket of bread. It is a good place to be, but not now. Severe famine has struck. She did not travel alone, she did not, fortunately, but as a small family with her husband and her 2 sons. Naomi left a place that she undoubtedly loved because it was home. She left it for no other reason because she had to. Home had become bitter and dangerous at the time, and her and her family's only option of escape was crossing the border from the kingdom of Judah to the kingdom of Moab. And cross it they did, hoping in the midst of it for a better life, unsure of the future in this new and now strange place. Strangers in a new land. Geographically not so far apart. What divides it geographically goes Bethlehem, the Dead Sea is about here, and here is Moab. So once you cross over, you're there just a few miles. Culturally, strangers in a strange land. Well, life did not get better. Maybe no famine, but something happened, something terrible. Naomi's husband died. We don't know how, but he did. Now, thank God she had her sons. Thank God she had them, because without them, at this time, how culture and society was set up, she would have had no identity, if not for her boys, her sons. So she was still okay in this new land. And that was until the unthinkable, the death of her entire family, her husband and her 2 sons. now gone. We don't know why, we don't know what happened, but gone. For the love of God, we ask why. How? What next? This is not good for Naomi. Now our story tells the story of 3 women, Naomi and 2 daughters-in-law, who were from this new land. They were from this land, Moab. Now they faced literally life and death choices ahead of them in this moment in time. So in the midst of all this tragedy happening, Naomi, though, in this new land, heard rumors that things had actually changed for a better back home, back in Bethlehem. The famine had ended. Food was present. God had looked upon her people back there. Things were now stable enough to make a return. What other time than now, I guess. She knew then what she must do. So in her decision to go back, I wonder if she accounted for the love she was about to be shown by these 2 women. Not daughters, but daughters-in-law. Did Naomi know it was so deep? Orpah and Ruth showed Naomi love and loyalty, telling her, "We are going to come with you." Reversing roles now, leaving their land, just as Naomi had done a decade before, leaving their people and their God, their way of religion, to follow in loving loyalty this woman, Naomi. Naomi showed them love by not letting them go through to make such a choice. Naomi knew what it was to be an immigrant. She knew what that life was. And to be a stranger in a strange land. She had been living that life. And now to ask these 2 women to reverse that role and now become an immigrant in her land, she wasn't going to do that. When she had crossed the first time, she had family to do it with. She had her husband, she had her boys to do it to. The circumstance was different for her. What these women now were wanting to do was so considerably different than what Naomi had done in the first time. It was much more dangerous for them and their lives to do it. It is truly wild what love will have us do. So to follow Naomi would be 3 widows setting out on foot, starting over from scratch all over again, 2 of them in a brand new land. Naomi knew what she must do now. She must speak the truth in love to Ruth and Orpah, no matter how hard that hurt. Sometimes love has you do that. She tells them, "Go. Not with me, but back to your homes, to your families, and begin again without me, because you have that opportunity." That is the right choice to make. The 2 girls listened to the choice. Orpah would listen and she would leave. She would leave with tears streaming down her face, though, and a hug that she could not let go of Naomi as she turned to go. Ruth would not, could not. Ruth's speech in Ruth 1 is filled with passion and filled with love. She says, "Wherever you go, I will go. Your people, they will be mine. Your God will be mine. Where you die, I too will die." This is the love story of 2 courageous women, together setting now westward toward Bethlehem to a new life, not as mother and daughter, not bound by blood, but bound by something stronger, love. Once upon a time, Jesus was asked this question: "What is the most important commandment?" Someone asked him. Now, context, as it always is important, is very important here. And you may have picked up when I started to read after I found my Bible. I'm my Bible, thank you, Gwen, after I started reading, it started abruptly. As awkwardly as it was for me to find the Bible, starting to read was awkward, and that's because the lectionary has us in the midst of a question and answer. Don't you love it when it does that? So we got to fill in some of the blanks, okay? Where is Jesus and why is this going on? Jesus had just finished answering these maybe trick questions about some sticky situations, right? About paying taxes to the government. What say you, Jesus, about this coin? Who should we be paying these taxes to? Should we be paying these taxes? What say you, Jesus? So he answered the question, right? And then this total theological question about understanding the resurrection and whether or not those who we love and marry and have a relationship with now, whether that's going to be a thing in the resurrection. And mind you, that was asked by people who didn't even believe in the resurrection, but they wanted to get Jesus' answer. All right? So right after those two things, and he gave these answers as Jesus does, we were told about the one who asked this new question. And we're told that he had been listening to these other ones. He heard solid and profound answers. He himself was a teacher of the law in Jerusalem. And then he asked this question. But a teacher of the law, though, as this man was, I think he already knew the answer to the question. He knows the most important commandment. So why would you ask Jesus to answer this? And what would Jesus say? You know, put yourself in, as a listener, in Jesus' shoes. Because Jesus could answer this. What is most important? Here's his chance. If it was power Jesus was looking for, he could have answered this in any number of ways, right? To direct power, here. If it was his divine ego he was looking to stroke, he could have answered this in any number of ways, right? To bring it here. If it was to gain more followers, okay, this is my chance. These people have been listening and they're not convinced yet. I can convince these people to come follow me with this answer. So he could convince in any number of ways them to come follow his way. Come on, come to Jerusalem with me. And he could have answered that question in any number of ways. What is most important? So Jesus answered. In his answer, he told his own love story. His answer was to love God with everything you have. And to love your neighbor as you love yourself. His answer was to love God with everything you have and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love. That's his answer. As powerful as that is, right? For God and for neighbor. Love. In this kingdom, Jesus answered, love is what trumps all else. True love is truly shown when true altruism reigns. When altruism wins the day, the giving up of oneself for love and another can and will change the course of lives forever. What does loving God with everything you have and loving your neighbor as yourself look like in practice? And that answer is altruism. It is that powerful that it can and does change the course of history. As if you know the end of Ruth, how that book ends, that love Ruth showed to get her to Bethlehem changed the course of history forever. Self-sacrificing altruism, loving a neighbor as you love yourself, is one of the most powerful human forces this world has ever seen. And let us not forget that it is what the church is founded upon, empowered by, and called to do: self-sacrificing altruism. The sacrifice of self for others, when witnessed, when you see it, and when lived out, is profound and unforgettable. And we believe, yeah, it can change you. We have many names for it, and I named it one as altruism, right? It has other names too. Unselfishness, generosity, philanthropy, self-sacrifice. It has names. But we don't often enough call it simply what it truly is, and that is one short word: love. Love for God, love for others. That is what's most important, Jesus said. It was love that cannot let Naomi go back alone. Love that binds people together in a journey across borders to this new land together. That is what changes history, one person at a time. Ruth made a pledge then and there in love to Naomi that Naomi's God would be her God, that Naomi's people would be her people. And then centuries later, Jesus echoed it when he said to love God and to love people. That's it. Through this message, and I was thinking about it coming here this morning, I am challenged to consider, this is where I take this and I go, I am challenged to consider how I love outside the scope of my family. Because that part's easy to me. Loving family, yeah, even as difficult as it is sometimes, I know we have that. But loving family, those who you are connected with by name or by blood, outside of that scope is my challenge. Bigger than that. Are my thoughts and my actions, are they driven by love of God and love of others? That should be an easy question to answer. How I think, how I act, what I do. If yes, what does that love look like? And do I believe that it truly can change the world? This week, as we go from here into the world, I invite you maybe to take on the same challenge. Think of what love is and looks like outside the scope of your family. What does it look like bigger than that as you take it with you in all that you do? This I name, I proclaim in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.